words, and most of them will I'll say I remember about VP-74. I remember joining VP-74 July 1st, 1941. It was the day they changed from VP-55. I went to the squadron engineering department. From there, I ended up in the plane crew, but in the meantime, they decided to send a group to Iceland. And I was one of the lucky ones. Spent 10 days on the destroyer. And we got there, and I got to be a mess cook. And and the galley was 2 tents, and the officers lived in tents, and the enlisted men lived in tents. And we all ate the same mess. We had one spigot in the whole tent, in the whole camp. And it was right behind the galley. Well, it would get cold there at night sometimes, you know. And the pipe would freeze, and we'd cut it off, and we'd move it out a few feet. And by the time I left there, that pipe, that spigot, it seemed like to be a mile away. And as far as bathing, they were very scarce. The officers are the same as the white hats up there. And the heat was a kerosene stove in these tents. In the meantime, we got the English to give us what they call Nissen huts. And when I wasn't mess cooking, I was helping to build the Nissen huts. They were good to us, the squadron was. They also told us we'd work 8 to 8. Well, at that time, if 8 to 8, it was light. And as the day got shorter, 8 to 8 was dark by 3 o'clock. Anyway, we got out of there, and we lost our first aircraft there. It flew into a mountain, and all hands were lost. We had services there for them, and we brought them back to the States. From there, we were transferred back to Norfolk. And I arrived back in the States December the 7th. And we went into Boston, from there down to Norfolk. Well, I got to be moved up, and I got to be in a plane crew. And we went from there we were there in Norfolk a few months, then we went to Bermuda. And Bermuda was a good deal, but we lost our second aircraft. All hands. So it was not a very joyous time, but we got what we were doing. We were following the submarines around. So we moved back to Norfolk, got squared away, and they decided 74 would move again. So he moved to Trinidad. And all these times we had advanced bases tied to us. While we were in Norfolk, we had planes in Iceland, we had planes in Bermuda and Newfoundland, and then we got to Norfolk again. We was in Bermuda and Norfolk, and from the Trinidad we had advanced base in Puerto Rico. Well, I was in that base for a while. And then we moved to Natal, Brazil. We lost our next aircraft there. Then we got our I'm a little ahead of myself. We sunk our first submarine in Bermuda. Dick Schrader sunk it. We got to Natal, and we sunk number 2. We stayed in Natal quite a while, and we moved to Bahia, Brazil, San Salvador. We got our second, our third, and our third submarine there. We moved to Rio. We got our next submarine. We got another submarine south of Rio. There was 10 PBM squadrons in the Navy. They got 10 submarines. 74 got 5 and a probable of another one. So it was a pretty good record. And the President of the United States decided that we should have a commendation. So they gave us the unit commendation for the work we had done in the year and a half we were there. And one of the greatest moments of '74, while we were in Natal, was the President of the United States and the President of Brazil inspected us. Now you got 165 men. It didn't look too good, 2 or 3 ranks, so we were lined up single file. And there was a new type of inspection there, where as the President rode by, instead of doing this, it went like this. We all followed the President. Well, it was great. It was a great moment for the squadron. Like we say, while we were in Rio, we got another submarine. But I'd like to go back to Natal for a minute. After we sunk the submarine in Natal, we come back from a flight, and there's a bunch of the fellas standing on a ramp. I couldn't figure what's going on. Well, I found out what it was when they threw me overboard. I had made chief. So that was it. So I went to the barracks, and there's all my gear sitting in front of the men's barracks. I said, what's going on here? They said, you don't live here anymore. So I had to pick up all my gear, go to the chief's barracks. Now they were all old men. Some of them 35 years old. 30 was every young boy. I was 20. So I rapped on the door. He said, what the hell do you want? And I said, I gotta move in here. What do you mean you gotta move in here? I said, well, I'm the chief. They give you a dirty, come in. So they took me in, and he took me back and gave me a bunk. He wouldn't let me look at them Playboy magazines or them magazines like that. They said, none of that stuff. So 8 o'clock, they put me to bed. So the next day, I got to be their mess cook. I know how to do mess cooking. I've done that quite often. And they treated me fine after that. But we had some wonderful chiefs in '74. They could do almost anything. I gotta look at something here. There was a lot more happened in '74, but in my experiences, there was never a bunch of men like '74. We come back to the States. I went to New York and then to Elizabeth City, and I was transferred out. In Elizabeth City, the squadron was torn apart. We were in a close-knit family, and they knew they were good men, and they transferred them to practically every new PBM squadron. I went to P. Martin's school for training, but I'll never forget my time in '74, and I'll never forget some of my shipmates. Most of them are gone now. And I was one of the young ones. So as time goes by, it'll just be memories. Thank you.
For 1942. We went out on a night flight, and when we checked out the engines, the left engine could not get up to full power. The right engine was doing fine. So our pilot, Jack Lafferty, said, well, if we can get off the water, we're going to fly it. Well, he pushed that thing and he got it off the water, and we're out there covering the convoy in the middle of the night. All of a sudden, Jack Pyle, who happened to be the flight mech, reports that he's lost pressure, oil pressure, on the good engine, on the right engine. So I guess the pilot, not thinking that he had a weak left engine, told Jack to cut the right engine so he wouldn't ruin it. And we'd fly back on one engine, the left engine. Now, he tells me as the radio operator, make up a coded message and tell the base we're coming back. Now remember, this is pitch dark at night. And I'm at the navigator's table making up the coded message. And at that time you had to look in the book for each letter and each word. It was a mess. It took a little while. All of a sudden, without realizing it, Jack Lafferty had flown that plane right into the water. We hit, bounced way up. When we came back down, the navigator's table went to the deck. I went to the deck, the navigator went to the deck, the plane broke apart, and there we were, sitting in the water with the tail up about 45 degrees. So anyway, to speed it up a little bit, we pulled the release for the first raft, and being the plane was at an angle, the raft fell and went forward, got lost. So the second one of us held the raft and the other pulled the lever, and of course when the raft fell, we went with it, but we had it. So that was a 7-man raft. We were sitting out there. We didn't have any life jackets because Jack didn't tell us we were going in. The life jackets were hanging up neatly up in the tunnel. And so I went in there and I told him, I said, now if this plane starts to turn, you let me know because I don't want to get caught in here. So I handed out a couple of life jackets and I said, well, I better put one on me. So the next one I put on myself, and I kept handing out till we had 6 life jackets. About that time they yelled, hey, it's going, and I dove out of there. So we had 1 7-man raft and 6 life jackets. Nobody was hurt seriously. We got the crew all together, and Jack Lafferty claimed he had a broken ankle or something, I don't know. But anyway, he stayed in the raft all the time. The rest of us did our turns on the outside and so forth. We stayed out there, I'm not sure now, it was either 3 or 4 days. And we could see planes looking for us, but they didn't see, they couldn't see us. Now, we had no water, no food. Those rafts didn't have anything, but I think we might have had 1 or 2 oars, that's about all. And I lost 19 pounds, in that time, and got terribly sunburned. But the early morning of the fourth day, I think it was, we see 2 little scout planes, OS-2Us, way off, 2 dots way off there. So we thought, well, they're too small, they won't see us. First thing you know, they're passing across us. First thing you know, they're moving either toward us or away from us. Turned out they were moving toward us. They saw something on the water and they were going to investigate. Well, they flew over, they dropped another raft and radioed in our position. So they were going to send a ship out to pick us up. Meanwhile, our planes who were out looking for us, they intercepted the message and they started to come in to look. And one of our planes spotted us, and he stayed around, but the ship never did get there. Anyway, it was starting to get dusk and he was getting low on fuel, so he went way off, dropped his depth charges, came in and made a sea landing, and picked us up and brought us in. And we stayed in the hospital for a few days. Anyway, out of this, there was 3 of us, Jack Pyle, Moon Mullins, and myself, that got commendations for, well, as a matter of fact, we were the first PBM crew that ever came back to tell about it. So, anyway, that's the story of
Came back from a flight one time, 12 to 14-hour flights they were, and they found that the city of Rio was completely covered with clouds. Now up on a 2,300-foot mountain is a big statue of Christ, spread out like that, and it was floodlighted at night and looked just like a cross. Well, they came into Rio, like I say, and it was all socked in. And they had the radar on a 5-mile range, but I should explain that you couldn't use the radar on a landing. It took up too much current from the batteries, and when you